Hello, everybody. Great. I seem to be getting a lot of yeses. So that's fantastic. So welcome. Presentation skills and confidence in public speaking. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about what scares either you in public speaking or perhaps your students, and what the challenges are, awkwardness or knowledge or topic expertise or connection with the audience. There are lots of issues that get in the way of people being really great public speakers. And some of the things that I'd like to explore today are about mindset, attitude, and about our delivery style and how we can perhaps take a little bit more control of our voices and bodies and our relationship with the audience, and then a little bit on content. I don't know if any of you were present for the storytelling webinar that we did a few months ago. That had quite a lot on narrative and content, but we'll revisit a little bit of those principles, bit of that and its principles today. So yeah, three main topics for today. And another thing it might be helpful to think about is to have a topic in mind for yourself, so that when we're discussing strategies or activities or ideas, that you might be able to apply some of your thinking to a particular topic, which might be about your teaching. It might be about this very topic. Okay, so the way I see it is that there are three principal elements that we need to think about. What we have available to us are ourselves as the presenter, and of course our relationship with the audience and what they need, and then the message, the content. And everything that we do in a presentation is to the end of meeting the purpose that we want to achieve. So presentations are not a particularly effective, time-effective or efficient way of getting information across. That's obvious. You know, it requires people in a room together, and that is quite resource-heavy. So one thing to think about is, how can we most powerfully drive the messages through that we want to drive through, and more importantly, how do we help people to remember them? Now, what presentations and public speaking are very good for is creating relationship with an audience. So although audiences don't remember very much, and that's where we need to think about how we craft the message and the delivery so that we help them to remember, what they're great for is influencing people and encouraging them to get on board with ideas, because we are usually either present in the room with them or they can see and hear us by some other means. So it's a very special thing, public speaking, and it's partly why it makes people so vulnerable, I think, is because it's all about creating a real relationship. So I'm hoping that everybody can see and hear now in creating this relationship. So we've got me and the audience and the message, and that means that I need to be credible, I need to be trustworthy, and to be the right person speaking on the topic, and to have passion for my subject. I need to be aware of what the audience needs, and in content terms, putting those two together, I need to be relevant. So it's not really good enough to just think about everything that we would like to say on a topic. We really need to focus it down to what the audience need and care about. And that is still predicated by what is the aim of this presentation, what is the purpose. So we always start with the purpose. So there are ways in which we can practice thinking about what an audience needs and the kind of conversation that we want to have with them. What are their concerns? What are their values? What are their priorities? What is their level of experience and expertise in the topic? What is it that they need? So I've got an activity that you might want to try for yourself or with your students, and it's a pair activity, which is about explaining things to somebody who has no context. They're not the expert on this topic. And this is the activity. And it's really quite straightforward to execute. The subtlety comes in really teasing out whether this person from the past that we're imagining we're talking to really, truly understands and has a context for what we're saying by the time we've finished explaining. So we have two people. We choose a modern object between us. It could be a microwave or a phone or an aeroplane, anything that wouldn't have existed 100, 200, 300 years ago. And your partner imagines they are that person from the past. And your job is to help your partner to really understand what this piece of technology or appliance or object is for, and how it benefits your life, and how it could benefit their life. And their job is to absolutely challenge and ask questions at any point they don't have a reference or don't understand what you're saying. And in that way, we really have to interrogate whether we are meeting our audience's value system, their context, their culture. And it's a really lovely, fun way of starting to think about what does an audience need? How do I step into their shoes as a presenter or a public speaker? And in my preparations and in my imagination, try and focus it as closely as I possibly can towards them so that we can really have a conversation that's meaningful and that I'm not just blinding them with things that they don't think are important or relevant. Do people get that? Can I just have a quick response as to whether people understand that activity? Because if not, I'll say a little bit more about it if I need to. Anybody, what are we getting? Yes, 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 cool. That's great. That's really great. Okay, if anybody has any questions, of course, we can come back to them at the end. So, okay, moving on a little bit and thinking about us and our delivery style and being confident, looking and sounding confident. So, we know that there are body postures and physical attitudes that make us feel and look confident and credible and comfortable. And they involve being relaxed, and they involve being alert and energized, and they involve, in an ideal world, having quite a strong awareness of the impact that our physical habits have. So I'm just going to talk you through one way of starting to become aware of your posture and to become centered and to look confident. So I'm going to invite you either to try this, if you can, standing up, or if not, just stay in your chair and we'll do it from there. So start with your feet about hip width apart, and if you're standing, obviously they're on the floor. If you're sitting, really grounding your feet into the floor. Okay, so you get a sense of being very solid in the lower body and relaxing your knees and unlocking any tension. And sitting or standing really balanced, so you're not slumping forward, you're not arching your back, you're allowing your spine just to really release towards the ceiling, crown of your head floating towards the ceiling. So you're thinking about lengthening in height, and also just allowing your chest to open a little bit and soften. And so you're imagining spreading a little bit widthwise as well. And your head position, ideally, is so that your chin is more or less parallel with the floor. And in presenting coaching, we do a lot of work on our physical bodies and on our faces and our eye contact, as well as our voices. Because the first thing that people perceive about you is what you look like. And very small adjustments can make a really big difference to that. So I'm also going to invite you just to let your shoulders drop away from your ears a little bit. Just scrunch them up and let them go. And start to tune in to when you feel relaxed and comfortable and mobile, and when you have tension in your body, and start to think about how to let it go. Just relax those muscles that might be holding tension, that make you feel and look less confident and comfortable than perhaps you could be. And little illustration of what that might look like. So our chap on the left there who's slumping forward and looking really under-energized, and our chap on the right who's looking a little bit formal and stiff, maybe overcompensating, and then just thinking about the one in the middle who's just adjusting nicely and who is standing in a really comfortable body posture and softening their neck and growing towards the ceiling. So you can practice that, and you can practice it with your students. And it's really worth just observing when people look comfortable, because also it links to how we feel inside. Now, this is a picture of Amy Cuddy showing a power pose. She's done a wonderful TED talk called Body Language, and you can go and have a look at that yourselves. But what she's talking about, she's a social scientist, and what she's talking about is the fact that we know that how we feel affects what we look like and how we carry ourselves. But they've done a big study on the fact that how we physically hold ourselves. I'm putting my arms up in the air now because that's a classic power pose. That's what athletes do when they cross the line. It's a victory pose. That by preparing, by habitually going into strong power poses, taking up a lot of room, it radically affects on an unconscious level our readiness and confidence and our ability to succeed or get through interviews well or get through speeches and presentations well. So again, that's something I'm going to invite you to try out for yourself and with your students, is play with confident postures before you have to speak. Just get yourself into some really powerful poses for a while and see how it makes you feel and see if it makes a difference. Again, just checking in. Does that make sense to people? Just give me a few yeses if it does. Fabulous. That's lovely. Okay. And this connects to our breathing. In terms of presentation and calm and mind management and voice control, breathing is really key. Now, you may well be very familiar with breathing exercises already, but very briefly, I just want you to think about your own breath and encouraging your breath to drop really deeply into your body. And so now, everybody, just let's all put a hand just below your sternum, maybe just above your waist, where there's lots of movement in the belly, and on your lower ribs. Yes, drinking water is very important too. Thank you for that. And just to experience relaxing and letting your breath drop really easily, not a big forced top-up breath, because that is a fight or flight reaction, but a nice, easy, relaxed breath really deep into your body. Just feel it going to where your hands are. And somebody's already done Pilates today. Perfect. I didn't have time, but I will later. And then feeling the breath leave the body and being aware of all those support muscles that are helping the breath to be controlled and strong and consistent, empowering the voice. Yeah? And I think I saw somebody say, and smile, indeed. So of course, our faces and the muscles in the face and the throat are also very much connected to not only how people feel about us emotionally, but also connected to the quality of our voices. So in smiling and releasing the muscles in the larynx, we also brighten up the voice and allow the voice to be more resonant. And that's a whole other piece of work we maybe could talk about another time. So relax, release the breath, use the torso muscles to support the voice, and smile, and remember that it's much easier to show warmth in the face of the voice when we're relaxed. It's quite hard if we're very tense, so practice those facial muscles relaxing and the body relaxing and being alert. Okay. Anybody has any questions, just please send them in our direction. Okay. So, clarity and variety. I think you guys are probably pretty much experts on clarity already. But let's just think about what these two things might be, how we might most usefully think about those in this context. So in terms of clarity, my take on listening to many, many, many people doing presentations is what they tend to lose is the ends of words and the middle consonants. So I would very much encourage you to be listening for those. I'm sure you do already. But ends of words and middle consonants, and where we elide and where we don't elide words in terms of clarity. And one thing that I do a lot with my students is to get them to over-enunciate speeches and texts and their own material in the speeches before they come back to speaking normally, just to really get those muscles working. And exaggerate the vowels. Isolate the consonants, play with those. Isolate the vowels, play with those to get more space into the mouth. And we'll look at a piece of text in just a moment and what we might want to do with that in terms of practice. Variety. We all know that one of the things that people can't bear is monotonous voices. So how do we get music into our voices? Well, obviously we can play with pitch. We can play with emphasis and punctuation. We can play with different pacings within the phrasing. And so let's just, how to eye contact, okay, we'll talk about eye contact at the end, or soon. Thank you, we'll hold that thought. So I've just got this extract from Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech here. And if we were practicing on this and other texts, I would invite you to look at which are the important words in the phrase, which are the phrases that need more emphasis. How does that repetition play into not only the wonderful construction of the speech, but how do you register I have a dream differently the second time from the first time, and then the third time from the second time, and the fourth time from the third time? What are the different images in there that your voice reflects with different colors and tones and energy? And when you can see the pictures that he's describing, what does that do to your storytelling, to your vocal quality, and how do you get those different emotions across with your voice? Hope, fear, sadness, joy. I would really encourage you to take texts, very different texts, apart, bit by bit, and play with them. Play with them with all kinds of different intonation and stress emphasis, and have fun. And of course, children's stories are perfect for this as well, because then we can do the voices and we can do the different characters. But really focus on how much color can I put into my voice so that it feels natural and authentic and not overplayed, but so that the muscles are really working quite hard. Most of us use very little range compared to what is available to us. So, at this point, if we're thinking about people who do it really well, I'm going to invite you just to throw in some ideas about who you think are wonderful speakers and what it is that's wonderful about them. What are they doing that is so special? Let's just, some quick responses here. Yeah? Have we got anybody coming back on that? Who does it wonderfully well? Stephen Fry paints a picture. Fabulous. Yes, thank you. Jeremy Harmer, always interesting, up to the point. I don't know who Jeremy Harmer is, but thank you. Lynette Simon Sinek, yes, absolutely. Golden Circle. Barack Obama, Ken Robinson. Lovely. So Churchill, great. Give us a couple of ideas about what it is that you love about them. Why are they so great? Drawing on what we've talked about so far and anything else that you've already thought about them. What's great about those people? Is it their content? Is it their delivery? Is it their attitude? Okay, we'll pick up on some of these because I'm not seeing anything come back just yet in a little while. Let's come back to those at the end. Great. So, we've been thinking about elements of delivery, and now I want to think briefly about elements of content. So, we know that human beings need the element of the argument that is logical and coherent and has a narrative, and we also need anecdotes and feelings and stories and images. Both of these really have to be there in our content. Okay, so the facts. We talked about narrative strands a little bit in the storytelling webinar. I invite you, if you weren't there, to go and have a look at it on the website. So what are my key messages? What are the key messages, the chapters that lead towards the purpose, the objective that I want to get to? What kind of evidence do I need to back it up? What makes me look credible in that sense of being logical and knowledgeable? And then, what is going to make the audience come on board from an emotional point of view? What are the human stories that I can tell that make this meaningful and relevant and specific to the audience? Those are my questions. Now, one way of exploring this, and this is something I mentioned last time, a really simple activity, again, maybe for your students, is to think about the facts. If you were describing a journey that you take, what are the facts that your audience needs to understand how to undertake that journey themselves? Okay? So talk your partner through it and see if they can picture that journey from A to Z, knowing how they'd undertake it themselves and get safely to their destination. And then pare down those instructions to the fewest possible, the key messages. What are the chapter headings then? What are the key moments that they still need to understand to get them to their destination? Now we add in the interesting features that they might experience along the way. Maybe a wonderful building or an interesting person or a tree or a lovely pavement or a beautiful, anything that is going to spark their imaginations, that make them want to undertake that journey. What is wonderful and interesting about this journey? Those are the heart moments. Those are the colour elements in your story, and we need colour. We need to bring this to life, this message to life, with something that is not only relevant but colourful, visual, exciting, intriguing. So we start with the purpose, we establish our chapters, and we add colour to each chapter along the way. And this is a summary of one way of thinking about how to construct an outline. So in the beginning section, good idea to grab the audience's attention. As we know, they don't remember very much, and they're much more likely to listen carefully if you say something that is meaningful to them right at the beginning, something surprising, something intriguing, something exciting. Sell the benefits to them really early on. If you want to establish your credentials right at the beginning, that's fine, but I would do it after the attention grabber and the benefits. And your credentials are what gives you the right to talk. You don't have to have a PhD in the topic, but you do have to care about it very much. And if you want to, you might tell them how you're going to approach the topic, if you want to. You need to be clear about your key messages in the middle, the chapter headings. You need to be clear about keeping their attention with colour. And we really need a summary and a conclusion at the end, because we find it hard to remember things. So make it as easy as you possibly can for us, and help us to remember your most important message as you conclude. Okay? One more checklist for you. Thinking about head and heart, I've got something that I find really useful here. So on the head side, we've got, that's the top row, hard facts and data. Check for the people who want expertise in the audience that you've got some hard facts and data in there. Check for the people who want to know what they have to do and like to see actions and purpose. Check that your purpose is really clear and that people know which actions are required. On the lower level, understanding of the audience. Demonstrate that you've stepped into their shoes. Find some ways of showing that you've thought about their concerns, that if they need reassurance, you can reassure them. If there are feelings they might be experiencing in relation to the topic, reference them. And down on the bottom right, imagination. What are the anecdotes? What are the images that bring this material and this topic and these messages really vividly to life? Search for stories, search for pictures. And the word in that corner is imagine if. Okay, and then and how you scatter those through your presentation, how you might use them as individual chapters will obviously depend on the audience and the messages and the context. Okay, so finally, this looks a bit like an activity that we referenced last time. It's another lovely activity for your students, is in pairs. When they've got their material ready, is to, one of them is the speaker and the other one either says, tell me more, if they need more colour at that point, or move on if they want to hear some more of the story, the narrative, the facts. And you can play with that as a co-coaching exercise. So you're either saying, okay, move on, I've got it, or no, tell me more, to encourage them to put in more description and colour. It really tells you so much about your material. And when people say to you, tell me more, it tends to bring us to life. So our delivery tends to be a little bit more vivid and colourful and expressive. So those are, wow, that's our half hour. That's fantastic. So has anybody got any more response to the idea of what do we think wonderful looks like? Maybe be a little bit more specific about what it is that those speakers that you've referenced do really well. Storytelling, yep. Thank you, Mariana. Pacing sometimes, yep. Pacing, variety, absolutely. Yep, their personality comes through. It's clear. Okay, there's a question there from Sherry. Just says, hold it. How can you apply this to boring topics like financial reports and presentations? Sherry, the answer to that is apply, I'm going to go back. Apply this slide here. You know with those sorts of boring presentations what the hard facts and data is, but what is the purpose of conveying them to the audience? So there is always either a metaphor or a personal story that illustrates the benefit of this data, this purpose for the audience, and go back to Story Spine. Go and have a look at the storytelling webinar, and I think that if you weren't there, I think that will give you some ideas. Apply the Story Spine to your topic. Find out for yourself what the story is. Okay, anything else? Role play, what does that mean? Okay, interactive speech, not bombing. Yes, this is all about creating a relationship. So of course you can actually create interactions with your audience. You can ask them questions, you can ask them to think about things, or you can imagine that it's a conversation all of the way through. Eye contact. Yes, thank you for reminding me. Eye contact. The important thing with eye contact is, of course, what if the audience is not interested in the topic at all? Well, maybe they shouldn't be there. But we'll come back to that, eye contact. So the most important thing with eye contact is to make people really feel seen. So eye contact is actually a very natural activity. Sometimes I think the easiest thing to think about is that you're facilitating the audience. Forget that you're the speaker. Think about the fact that you're looking after them. You are, as somebody has just said, thank you, finding common ground with them. So you do that through empathizing with them, through imagining what they need in terms of the material, but you also make sure that you really see them and you're really talking to them. And there are all kinds of techniques you can use, but actually the most important thing for me is that you slow down and that you really, really look at people when you're speaking. And you can include a lot of people if you have a large audience in your peripheral eye contact, but don't fake it or it becomes like a tennis match. No, just really, really speak to them and your eye contact will work. Anything else? Hand movements. Yes. The biggest gift you can give to yourself in terms of your gesture is to relax your arms and hands. And then they will help you. The more you relax, the more you really imagine what you're talking about, the more your gesture will automatically reflect what you're trying to say and the moods that you're trying to create. Usually what gets in the way of natural gesture is tension and awkwardness and habits. So while you're practicing your posture and your alignment and your relaxation, include your arms and your hands in that. Allow them just to rest by your side until it's time for them to come to life. But try to avoid the need to clasp them in front of your body or behind your body. Anything else anybody wants to know? Yes, absolutely involved in with you. Carol, what would you suggest to the presenters about asking their audience to fill in a short feedback form for their future improvements? I'm wondering, what do you mean by the presenters? I mean, I would always have a mental feedback form for yourself. And if you're talking about your students, yeah, for sure, have a checklist about how connected they felt to the material and how they felt their pacing went and how they thought they were expressive in body language. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Sure, ask audience questions. We've mentioned that. Great, lovely. How can we get your PowerPoint slides if not having had enough time to make all the necessary screenshots? I'm going to hand that question back to Henry. Anything technical? Thank you, Henry. They will be available. Fantastic. Do not read scripts. Never read scripts. Never. You're so right. Okay, on notes and prompts, please do not use your PowerPoint slides as prompts. Please know your story so that for the most part, all you need are small cues. I would ask you, unless you absolutely have to, please never have to read a script. But do have any quotes that you want to get perfectly right in front of you, maybe on a small card. Find ways of prompting yourself in any way that you need to, but don't have too many. Should you learn your story by heart? No, you should know your story. What is the story behind what you're saying? If you do have something you want to get completely word perfect, then yes, learn it or have it written down if you really need to. But otherwise, if you really understand your beginning, your middle and an end, you shouldn't need too many prompts. Somebody said, should you leave questions until the end? I think it really depends on how urgent the questions are. But whatever stage you choose to take questions, and I would try and control that, because otherwise you can have people really interrupting your flow all the way through. Come back to your conclusion after you've taken Q&A, because we want you to have the last word and we want your key message to be the last thing people remember. So take Q&A whenever you think it's most appropriate, but have another summary afterwards. Any tips for quick preparation before a speech? My quickest tip would be use this checklist, the slide I've still got up. I agree. I think you should rehearse. I think if you possibly can, people avoid rehearsal because it makes them uncomfortable. But I don't think anybody is a better speaker without any rehearsal. And practice, 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 absolutely. And practice with a partner as well. Get them to give you feedback. Try the moving on or tell me more exercise. Get them to tell you what they remember. It might not be what you expect. Get them to tell you the feelings that they experienced as you were speaking. That might not be what you expect. And in terms of building confidence, oh yeah, can you repeat the essence of tell me one more thing, please? Yeah, let's go back to that slide. So you've got your presentation material, and actually you can do this exercise at any stage when you're at the beginning of constructing it or when you think it's pretty much fully formed. And with a partner or partners, start to deliver your presentation, and when they want a little bit more color or detail, all they do is say, tell me more. And this fleshes out the stories that you're telling or the descriptions that you're giving them, or maybe you're describing a person, a character that's relevant to your topic. And they want to know more. They want to see what that person is like. They want to know how they talk. They want to experience their behaviors. That's true. So rehearsal with someone to listen to you really improves it. Yeah, same with the lessons or simpler. You're absolutely right. So you don't give them all the blossom straight away. No, you don't. That's right. You have to scatter the blossom through. So each section, each chapter has its own color, stories, images alongside it. You're very, very welcome. Thank you for thanking. Anything anybody needs before we go? Great, fantastic. So unless there's anything else, I'm going to hand back to Henry.
Thank you guys. Lovely talking to you.